Hello, how are we all? Hope you're all having a great day so far. Today is another extremely hot day here in England, which I am not used to. So I'm a little bit sweaty. I've got my fan in the background. Hopefully, you don't hear that going, but it doesn't stop me bringing you another podcast episode because it's what I love to do. My guest today is Vanessa De Waal, and she is the founder of an app called Flöka. So this is an all-in-one platform and app for women's health. I'll go through her bio, then I'll cover some exciting news with a collaboration and also what to expect from today's episode. So Flöka integrates with tons of other apps and devices that you might be using separately and brings all of that information together so you can see clearly what maybe is or isn't working. You can also track your symptoms in one place, and then you can see over time reports and how things are changing. And I'm a big fan of tracking, not excessively. We'll talk about that in the episode too, how to find balance, but this would have really helped on my healing journey if it would have been around a few years ago when I needed it the most. Vanessa's intention is to accelerate the rate at which women heal themselves sustainably and at the root, which I'm all for. Whether it's through the Go Deeper podcast she hosts or the technology she co-creates with her community, the intention is always first and foremost to help people. It started with her own chronic health issues from the age of 13, which we're going to go into details on the podcast today, as this is what originally led her to develop the app for her own benefit to start, but now it helps so many others. It felt overwhelming in her experience. So many things went wrong. She saw a different specialist, but eventually she used tracking and the app to get herself better, which is so good. Vanessa believes whatever chronic health issue you're struggling with, keep believing in yourself and you will find the help that you need. You'll find the lifestyle that you need, and what those are will be unique to you. So the very exciting news is that my online course, PCOS Success, will be launching on the Flöka app on Thursday, the 29th of July, so this week. I created this course initially in 2019, and it was completely updated last year to contain even more amazing tips and education. Polycystic ovarian syndrome is believed to affect between, I think 1 in 6 to 1 in 10 women, and it's actually the leading cause of female fertility issues. I've specialized in this condition since I started seeing clients in 2017, so it's the condition that I've got the most experience with and the hormone imbalance I've seen most, more than anything else really. So I'm very passionate about it too, because I was personally affected by PCOS symptoms, acne, hair loss, excessive facial and body hair growth, weight loss resistance, and irregular menstrual cycles. So if you have a PCOS diagnosis, maybe brand new, or you've been struggling for a while with those symptoms, or maybe you've not had a diagnosis, but you resonate with some of those symptoms that I just listed, you should definitely check out the course on Flöka this week. It's a very affordable way to get my expert advice and guidance on nutrition, fitness, supplements, skincare, and more. It's a very holistic look into PCOS, and I give all of my top recommendations that have now helped hundreds of clients struggling. We've had pregnancies, we've had skin clearing up after 10, 20 years of acne, we've had people losing weight, and I mean, even I share my transformation online, but this is everything that I did pretty much for, and all of the different things to investigate for PCOS is in the course. So Flöka is amazing in general, even if you don't need the course. So definitely download the app and start seeing all of the amazing ways that it can support your healing journey. So in this episode, we cover Vanessa's healing journey in detail, her experience with starting Flöka, creating an app, business in general, a list of some of the popular apps and devices that integrate with Flöka. Some common ones are like the Oura Ring, the Fitbits, the Apple Watch, Temp Drop is another one if you're tracking your menstrual cycle. Her thoughts on tracking versus being intuitive with her health, and I really liked her opinion on that. Benefits of tracking your menstrual cycle, tracking symptoms in general, and how practitioners can actually benefit from this in their practice, because it can be a really amazing tool for you as a practitioner to then get access to people's data. So you don't have to waste a ton of time in the sessions. You can see how someone's been getting on the past week or month between calls and see how they've been sleeping, see how their heart rate variability is, the recovery scores, their exercise, their movements, all that good stuff. So you're just going to get so much data about your clients, and things that you track, you often get better results with. That's just fact. You need to know where you're going, what you're doing, what's not working, what is working. So yeah, all round amazing tool. So let's get into the episode today with Vanessa and check out the PCOS Success course now in the Flöka resource library. Hi, Vanessa. It's so good to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited
Love
to chat
that.
with you. We've just done a back-to-back recording, so we'll be a little bit Zoom tired after this session. But yeah, I've just been on your podcast to talk all about PCOS Success, my course that I'm hosting on Flöka, which is your app. So yeah, we're doing a little collaboration today. But I wanted to interview you to talk more about the app today. But just to start off, I think the reason that you actually started your business in the first place is because of your own health journey, which a lot of us, that's why we get into this work, is something that we struggled with and we found a solution. So yeah, I'd love to know, because I've not heard it yet, your health journey and yeah, how you started Flöka.
Yeah, so I guess for me, like it started very young. I was 13. There was all kinds of issues going on with my gut and my hormones, and didn't have my first period till I was 16. So that whole kind of experience was pretty delayed. And then I think by the time I must have been in my like age 19 or 20. I learned that I actually have PCOS, and there was just so many different symptoms that I was encountering at the same time. Whether it was like skin, gut, it was very, very overwhelming for me as a kid. And here in Canada, which is kind of similar to the NHS system, we have universal health care. And so, I went to different doctors and they all, tried their best. They had limited time, but they're kind of like, you're just going to have to live with your symptoms and that's going to be your life. And just me hearing this, I was like, no, 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 like there must be some other type of solution. So that's when I started learning and researching about integrative care. I went to an integrative medicine conference with my mother, who's actually an MD as well, and just started accessing that kind of care. And it was just a wonderful experience to be finally heard, and just the practitioner wanted to go really deep with me. And she, who, I think accountability in these lifestyle changes matters just as much as the information is the actual action. And so she wanted me to write down, everything I was eating, my sleep, my fitness, nutrition, symptoms, all of it on this piece of paper. And me having awful handwriting and being kind of young and annoying was like, I already have this data on like 12 different apps on my phone. How do I, get it all together and get it to you basically? So that's how Flöka came about. We just started by creating one app that can connect to thousands of different apps that women use the most and bring it all into one dashboard. And then those dashboards are not only insightful to the user to see, what patterns are happening, but also you're able to just share that with your practitioner so that they can get that context faster. And the whole idea was, the faster we can get this context to the intelligent recommender, the faster the communication can pick up, and we won't have to wait like as many sessions to start making more changes and seeing how those experiments play out. So it was just about that. It was just a problem I really cared about. And with tracking myself, like I certainly have always been someone who wanted to have a journal, and I do notice that when I do track things, like things are more organized and they go better for me generally. So but there is of course a relationship between, being intuitive and
Mm.
tracking.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that today, because I'm sure that's some people's thought, or maybe they've had experience with tracking and they just went a bit overboard. Like I have this addictive type personality where I can get hooked on something and then it actually becomes more of a negative because I get too overwhelmed and there's too much data, but it can definitely be used wisely and it can be done in moderation and actually benefit you. So yeah, I want to talk about that today. I'm also interested with your mum being an MD and going to that conference and obviously knowing about this whole world that you're in now. Has she changed anything with her practice? Is she more holistic now? Is she still practicing?
Well, first of all, my mom is like a unicorn in the conventional healthcare system. She is always lecturing people, like walk the
Mm.
perimeter of the grocery store,
Oh, good.
don't eat things in boxes. She deals with the, population that struggles a lot with obesity. She's in a smaller community hospital in Canada, servicing First Nations populations and all kinds of things. So she's amazing. Yes, we've been learning together is the true answer. So while I was going through all these things, the beginning of my premenses and menses, she was going through menopause, and
Mm.
even though she had trained for a few years to become an OB before switching to emergency medicine, she was so confused. I was like, Mom, if we are this confused, and we're really spending a whole summer like looking through research papers, getting very nerdy, and there just weren't answers. If we are this confused, imagine how difficult it is for people who, don't have a mother like you. And so I was, yeah, so but we teach each other things all the time. Like I wake up to text messages, and it's a real privilege. I think the biggest privilege of my life to be her daughter. I love her in so many ways, but I think that, yeah, we're constantly on this journey together. And I think that um that's been the most inspiring part. We talk about things, and we really believe, both of us believe in integrative. So, the best from conventional healthcare, like you mentioned on the last podcast, if you're hit by a bus, you definitely want that conventional healthcare, and, partnering that with the best of, evidence-based and like holistic healthcare. And I think that's just such an exciting place. And she's one of those. I mean, her story is even more incredible of mine. How she became a doctor, and I could talk about it. She could save someone as
To
a
get her on the show.
like as a lifeguard. But she really got into medicine because she really wanted to help people. It really wasn't a financial thing. She was really doing it for the right reasons. And I think yeah, it's just an amazing legacy of hers. Obviously, she's retiring soon, and so um she's always
Oh, it's so lovely that you're like hyping her up on here and maybe share it with her
I know.
because she'll
I know.
never
She
know all of
doesn't
these
have a
lovely words.
social media at all, but yeah, she's a
That's
big
maybe
part
why
of the
she's so
story.
like health conscious because she doesn't go on social media.
I guess so. Well, she no, the boomers are on Facebook, right? They're
Mm.
on
Oh yeah,
Facebook with
Facebook.
their friends
Yeah,
sharing photos of their vacations, but other than that,
that's
not
so
too much.
cute. And if all medical doctors were like her, even just
Mhm.
open to the idea of holistic natural healthcare, but some are just so very stuck in their ways and actually dismissive. I remember asking, is there anything that I can do for my skin, or is there anything that I can do for my gut? And they were just like, food has no impact on those things, which I just, even though I didn't even know about nutrition, I just knew that it just did not make sense with my like young brain. Like I just knew intuitively that that wasn't right.
And just like you, like where I had doctors say, like there's nothing you can do. Even now, like if you're still going to an OB, which you have to do for different reasons, they'll be like, oh, there's no relationship. There's no need to even test your hormones. Just having my mom say that's not true. Like, there are doctors have different opinions, and it's a side note, but my sister's just gone through a whole course of colon cancer, and what we've all come out of it is you really have to advocate for yourself, particularly in universal healthcare, and know that one doctor's opinion is one doctor's opinion, and advocate for yourself and get a different doctor to see if they share the same opinion. So we definitely want to. My mom would always say we want to use their intelligent brain, but you don't have to take anything someone says as the gospel, right? It's
Yeah, and I work online now, and there
Mhm.
are benefits of seeing someone in person. They can do a physical examination on you. So there's obviously like pros and cons to both aspects. But I like you asked me on your show, what do I hope from healthcare? And I said like I really truly hope that there is this integrative approach, but I sadly don't see it happening anytime soon. But the focus that we should have is spreading the word about natural medicine and focusing on yourself and getting yourself as healthy as possible. And then hopefully that has a knock on effect on your loved ones, your friends and family start asking, what are you doing? Like, you look really good, you're glowing, you have so much more energy than you used to. And I think that's how we make a change, like a drop in the ocean, but over time. Maybe fingers
Absolutely.
crossed. I think we want the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah, and that's on the patient side, but what you're doing is so important too. You have case studies and evidence, and that gets, doctors are humans,
Mm.
right? Even if they are conventionally trained, a lot of them today, they care about their own health. And I think that as these things become more pervasive and more talked about, certainly I think that you'll get more doctors like my mom, and
Mhm.
I hope that everyone gets a doctor like my mom.
Yeah, a lot of in the medical profession, there's a lot of like suicide, health issues, mental health issues, same with dentistry, which is really sad. Just the type of hours that they work, and a lot of them do go into it wanting to help people and make a change. And then it's usually the people higher up in like the pharmaceutical industries that are a bit more money focused. But then it's the pharmaceutical companies who educate the doctors a lot of the time, because a doctor's
Mhm.
job really is to diagnose and then prescribe a treatment, a medication for that. So it's not that they're withholding information from us a lot of the time. They just don't know that there's options out there. But it angers me when they are so dismissive of it. Or I've had some people who have been in the doctor's offices for 20 years. They come to see me, they get an improvement, they go back to tell the doctor, and they just like say, "Oh, it's not linked at all. It's nothing that you've done. It's just a spontaneous remission, or it's just luck, or like I don't want to listen to that. Like I don't care. Like get out of the office, pretty much." Which is sad, but even with that, just accept it and do some journaling to get the anger out if you're that patient, but you don't want to hold on to resentment, because yeah, it's not going to change anything. So in terms of your health journey, now that you've come out on the other side with a lot of your hormonal symptoms, you're feeling so much better. Looking back, is there anything that you feel like contributed to the fact that you had that delayed period and PCOS like symptoms?
Yeah, so a lot of the things we spoke about in the podcast, like on our podcast, it's the Go Deeper podcast where we interviewed you, certainly rang true, whether it was, I was born naturally, my mom had no drugs. I don't know how she did that. But I did have a lot of ear infections as a child. And so I was probably given, antibiotics, parents wanting to do whatever they can to stop the pain. So I think that's it. There's a lot of genetic predispositions too. My dad also has IBS. I do know that the grandchildren of kids who were in puberty or prenatal in the Dutch hunger winter in World War II are more likely to have diabetes. So
Mm,
since that's an insulin, I don't know,
yeah,
I think that's related
metabolic
to a metabolic
relation. Yeah.
thing with PCOS as well. I think there's just so many different things, but also you're talking about trauma and how trauma isn't necessarily like there's a spectrum. Absolutely, everything is a spectrum. And so it's one of the things that I haven't really talked much publicly about, but certainly, if you've gone through some challenging emotional times just in your own family, I think that can really result in stress, and that can translate into different things and just epigenetically expressing those genes that are already vulnerable. So yeah, and I also think back in I was in high school in 2007 and I graduated 2011. I don't think there was as much, I didn't have as much knowledge then as I do now about what's healthy. In fact, the whole understanding of what is healthy is kind of changed. Like people are more aware of, okay, like canola oil inflammatory. That wasn't a thing. It was, seen as healthy. People had base cell back in the day, people were trying to get, yeah. So I think,
Everything was like super low fat then, but we know that
yeah,
there's good types of fat and more inflammatory types of fat.
yeah, exactly. And my family was always, very into health and fitness, and they had all these vitamins. But I think, yeah, so there's just, I think the challenge can be when you're in a journey, it can be so overwhelming when you have so many different things happening at once. It's not just one thing, it's so many different things. And you mentioned that you experienced symptoms of like dementia like symptoms. Like that can be the most overwhelming thing, brain fog, because when I was a teenager, like I was, I was very into, I was a very good student. Like I really identified, my identity was really wrapped up in my cognition. And then to get to university and feel like I was experiencing brain fog with all of these other symptoms, it's very difficult for your identity, because it's one thing to look
Mm.
different than how you feel, but then the other thing is to be thinking different than how you're used to
Like
thinking.
knowing what you want to say, but it just not confusing. You just can't get
Yeah,
the words out. It's really
exactly.
scary actually.
Yeah, it terrifying. You're worried if you'll ever be able to think as well as you used to. So I think that that's a big factor. And actually, as I was listening to your podcast, I think mold did impact our whole family. We were living in a newer home, but we had a pond, and I'm sure with basements and some pumps, there is some type of relationship. And I think that yeah, it just so it takes a very, very, very holistic approach to even start trying to address some of these problems. I'm so, so grateful to the whole, you know, industry and the fact that there are people out there talking about this, and not just people saying, well, this is going to be your life for the rest of, your life. And here's some pills. Another thing I think happens to people, I've never been on SSRIs myself, but if you are around people that are depressed, I think that can be especially if you are a sensitive person, you can really feel for those people, and that can really impact you because you are probably as happy as like the five main people in your life. And if a lot of them are depressed or they're on SSRIs, it can be very difficult. That was a really significant impact in my life. I don't know if I can talk about this, but my mom was, she was going through menopause. She was given these SSRIs, and she probably shouldn't have been. And even though she, was a doctor, she wasn't really understanding that you would be stuck on them, and it changes the way that your brain works, and then you're going to be blunted for a while. And so actually it took the research of the, I would call it integrative way, to learn how to get off these things safely with things like 5-HTP, so you're not much more depressed than you were even starting them when you finally come off. That's a
Mm.
huge tangent. I'm sorry, no, you
No,
didn't
no,
get for
that's
that with the question,
totally
but
valid, and it makes total sense. Like in your situation, there wasn't just one thing. It's probably like a little bit of
mhm,
this, a little bit of that. Definitely your environment, structurally with mold, but also energetically and emotionally with your family. Like, what's the family dynamic? Does your mum
and
struggle
gut
with
health.
anxiety? Because that's gonna
Yeah,
like affect the way that you're raised and how you express your emotions. And now we know unresolved emotion, unexpressed emotion can actually lead to physical disease.
totally. And your people around you, like their health is your health. If COVID didn't teach us that, like that's certainly the truth. The health of the people around you is your health. And another big thing is gut health. So on my fourth birthday, I was on the toilet and people were like, what? So I had struggled with constipation my whole life. Like not like you're not taught as a child how often you should go to the bathroom, what's a problem. But that was certainly, a problem for me. And the gut is very sensitive to what's happening in your life and stress as well. You need to be able to rest and digest. So, healing the gut lining, healing and promoting better gut bacteria, all types of things I think are really helpful. You were talking about coffee enemas on the last episode. That has honestly helped too. Um, yeah,
One
there's
of my
some
favorite
really,
tools. I've probably mentioned them on every single podcast episode that I like record or I'm on. I post. Like, they're just my favorite thing ever, and they made the biggest difference to my brain fog. And I can tell that your brain fog has improved because in like the past few years you've managed to start a business, which I attempted to like grow my business when I had the brain fog, but it just wasn't happening. I had to really get myself healthy first in order to have new ideas and think clearly and be able to have a phone call without documenting every little thing that I want to say. But yeah, I'd love to know about your experience starting this business, especially in app in the health world. I work online in the health world. I know it's a little bit different with apps and all of that stuff. So yeah, I'd love to know how that whole process was. And when was it that you started it? How many years ago?
Yeah, so it was a dream of mine, I guess, when I was in school. We really started the whole practitioner and getting the product more complete in COVID.
Mhm.
And so that timing was, I guess, just very serendipitous with a lot of people going online. But yeah, so I grew up with an entrepreneur in the home in technology, and I've always just loved technology. I love like if you can create solutions for problems. That's the most exciting thing. It really, yeah, I'm just trying to think about how to respond to the question, but I really like the honest narrative of entrepreneurship is really hard, and absolutely it is. It would be way too difficult to attack if you have brain fog, if you have as many overwhelming things going on as I did when I was very, very sick. Um,
Are there any
yeah,
mistakes that you've made with business or any
oh yeah,
like top
of
tips?
course. Of course. I mean, I think a lot of people say that if you weren't naive enough, like if I wasn't naive when I started, I might not had, just if I had known everything that I
Mm,
knew, I might not have
yeah.
just jumped into it, and maybe that's an advantage in some way. But yeah, you learn so much, and I think what I love so much about the work we do is it's teamwork. So you're building a team, you're figuring out like how the team can work together, um, and just the whole process of building a team. It took me a long time to build a great team, but it makes such a big difference now that it's done. And um, yeah, just a lot about like teamwork has been a big learning for me. Project management, um, but I'm always learning, and there's different things to learn about like leadership, and I'm constantly trying to learn more. So I really don't think I'm done by any means, but I certainly um it's just been such a learning journey. And if you want to learn a lot very quickly, then starting a business is a
Yeah.
great
I
idea.
heard someone say it's like the greatest personal development journey you'll ever go
Mm,
on.
yeah,
Which I
absolutely.
love. Like I love the fact that because I just love personal development as it is, but the fact that it can help my business and actually the more that I improve myself, it reflects my business. So kind of
Totally.
win-win.
Totally. Personal growth precedes financial growth. And just like you, like I feel so connected to so much of what you're talking about. But like when I was 13, I was like reading my mom's Oprah magazines with like, what I know for sure. And
Yeah.
it's just a personal interest that it seems to come in handy. Um,
Like the
but yeah,
advice
honestly, I
columns
learned,
and that was definitely
yeah,
me.
yeah, and just different philosophies. And I feel like we learn so much from each other. Like I learn so much from my team every day. Um, and from our customers, from our community, from our users. And it's just like, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to try to solve these problems.
Amazing. Love to hear that. So tell us, we should have started with this, but tell us about Flöka. So what it
Yeah.
is and what type of apps and devices can be synced with Flöka and who can benefit from that.
Okay, for sure. So Flöka is designed to meet you where you are on your journey as you already are, working with probably different apps and wearables. So what Flöka does is it brings all of the data together. We've got 6 different pillars. So like sleep, fitness, nutrition, um, cycle, mind, all of it, and we bring it all together. So you can either track in the app or you can track. A lot of people do hybrid, like they'll have some data they'll input into the app and some in data that's coming from like say this Aura Ring or this Apple Watch or another app. And then it brings it all together, and then that's the way that you can get your insights. So by seeing everything from a bird's eye view on the web portal or like a bigger portal, you're able to see like, hey, when I'm doing this, I'm feeling this good. And that's really helpful as like, just feedback of a record of what's going on for you. You mentioned taking progress photos for your PCOS in the last episode, and we actually have that as a feature of like taking photos along the way in the body section. But yeah, basically, once you're all set up, hopefully on your journey, you're working with a practitioner like yourself, and then you're able to share all that information with your practitioner. And what that really does is help speed up the communication because the practitioner is able to access this information anytime in real time. So they're able to see like how things are going. They can check in on you, and they can also see patterns. So that's really what Flöka does. It's just designed to help speed up the communication, help speed up the rate of learning about your patterns. And it connects to thousands of different apps and wearables. So it's designed to connect to the ones that, are you're using most. And for myself, a lot of it is automated tracking, which is what we want. We don't want a lot of manual tracking. So Like I use an Oura ring for sleep and Apple Watch to track my workouts. Um, I also love the product Temp Drop, which is another product that's integrated into Flöka for basal body temperature tracking. Um,
It's for your
yeah, and
menstrual
different
cycle, if
meditation
anyone
apps.
doesn't know. So, yeah, like tracking your menstrual
Yes,
cycle to see when you're ovulating for helping with conception. If you
yes.
want to try for a baby, or if you want to avoid pregnancy, this is fertility awareness method, part one of the different tools that you can use to assess that.
Yeah, yeah, sorry, and I'm not articulating that, so
That's okay.
I'm still hearing just pressure washing. So, yeah, so for ovulation, even if you're not trying to get pregnant, as I'm sure your listeners know, like you might want to know whether or not you're ovulating to know, are you having a healthy cycle? Like if you have PCOS, ovulating is the goal. And it is an eco indicator of your health, kind of like a frog to the environment. So you're going to want to know, am I ovulating? Because ovulation is the main event of the menstrual cycle, and you're going to want to know, that's when your hormones are created. That's how you balance your hormones. So yeah, it's just good to ovulate in general for your own health. But obviously, if you want to conceive a child, then you're going to want to ovulate as well. And your body's probably not going to let you ovulate if it doesn't feel safe to do so or healthy enough to do so. So it's a great like biohacking tool to figure out whether or not we're ovulating, and tracking your cycle is something I've been doing since I had my first period because it was so late. There were like the very first apps. And so actually I have all my cycles saying, I think my first app was like Period Tracker Light, and
Mm.
has so many different icons in there. It's really, it still exists today. And I went and I looked at it. It's very nostalgic.
Oh, that's so good just to see the evolution, and as the
Mhm.
health, like the healthier you've got, the like more healthy your cycle is and your period and all of that, which is great. And I was mentioned before that I want to touch on your thoughts on tracking versus just being more intuitive with your health. So there's the argument probably against what you do in we don't need all of these tech devices. Let's just get in touch with our body again, which I can see that, but also I know the power of data. And often it's like with a GPS, you need to know where you're going in order
Mhm.
to like know what to do. And yeah, you need to have the end destination in mind, and you need to see like what is working, what is not working in order to steer the ship, so to speak. So yeah, your thoughts on tracking versus just being intuitive with health.
Think like it comes down to everything, whatever works for you. I just know that for myself, tracking, like when I track things, things go better, or I plan. I think the great amazing thing about being a human being is we have this pre-flight simulator called the prefrontal cortex. We have this ability to plan. And I think um, when you plan, like you're doing two things in the Floke app or in any app where you're tracking, you're reporting the weather, what's happening today, and you're planning the future. Like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to take this walk and take time for myself? Am I going to make a really nourishing meal? And then I'm reporting those things back to the, whether it's your journal or an app, and then you're in doing that, you're feeling good about taking care of yourself. And I think that's just a great rewarding cycle. I'm a big fan of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think that habit tracking can happen on a piece of paper or an app. For me, I love to see dashboards and chart things over time. I really do believe in the integrative approach to things. I do think that evidence based is where you want to be, and some things are not yet you don't have studies to have evidence yet. So you're doing like an N of one kind of biohacking experiment with yourself, and it's really good to actually see the data because like you said, if you're not doing data driven experiments with yourself, then in my question is sometimes, well, like what are you doing? You don't really know. And another case for this that I've heard from practitioners is we might have the best intentions with what we say we're going to do in terms of protocols, but we might just not remember that we haven't done them. And so it's great to have an external brain. There's so much going on in the world. There's so many distractions. I have to write lists because, with product management or you're running a business, there's just so many things going on. You have to write it down. I really do believe in writing it down. I do believe that organization is the key to success in all things. And that, your health is no different.
I think we also forget not just what to do with the protocol, but we forget how we're feeling day to day.
Yeah.
So let's say something like acne or sleep issues, you might start with it being a 10 out of 10 bad. And then 3 months in, you're still seeing breakouts on your face every time you look in the mirror. So you think, oh, I'm still struggling with acne. It's not changed. But then if you look back, maybe you've taken progress pictures, it's 50% better. It's a 5 out of 10. And maybe
Yeah.
the acne has started to change. It's gone from deep cystic inflamed acne, like all like deep in your cheeks, down your neck, and it's now shifted to being more like surface level whiteheads, and maybe they're just like on the forehead now. That is a sign of progress. And same with
Yes.
your digestion. You might have gone from being bloated every single day of the week, every meal, to still being bloated, but it's just around your period now. So that is
Yeah.
a huge shift and a huge improvement. But when you're in it, and I know this because I've been that person, you forget of how many symptoms you used to have because you're still not 100% healed, which never happens anyway, just as a side note. But I forgot about tons of symptoms that I had previously until someone brought them up, or I like listened back to an old podcast that I did. I was like, oh yeah, I used to struggle with that, and it's disappeared. Maybe because my main goal hasn't been met yet, doesn't mean that like nothing's changed. It definitely has.
Yeah. And I did mean to mention as well, like I do believe in the intuitive eating thing. I think that your body knows what it wants. And I believe in that. And that's another design decision we made at Flöka is we don't actually have calorie tracking in the app. You can connect a MyFitnessPal if you're good with that experience. But certainly having an experience design that's not built to trigger you, because there are eating disorders out there. There are people with triggers. There should be a place where you're not going to feel triggered, where the whole experience is designed around making you feel good and noticing what makes you feel good, as opposed to just being focused on a number on a scale, if that's not conducive to your goal. So I do think that it is possible to overdo it with tracking, absolutely. But I would think about when assessing whichever app, like what are the design goals of the app, and just make sure that you're feeling good when you're in the app. Because if you're not, you shouldn't be using it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something that I would say, and I certainly empathize with what's triggering. And yeah, and I do believe in intuitive eating too. It's like cravings are usually a good compass. What do you think? What is your philosophy on intuitive eating and cravings and
I
how
think
all of that?
there's a subset of people who intuitively think they want to be eating cakes every day. They want to have dessert after every meal,
Mhm.
and they have a raging candida overgrowth, or they have completely dysregulated blood sugar. So that's actually not supportive for them. And when their neurotransmitters are off and their gut health and their brain health is off, you can crave more junk food. And then it becomes a vicious cycle because you're never going to get out of that if you keep eating those inflammatory foods. But when you've healed a lot of the gut infections and blood sugar dysregulation, you can get to a place where you are intuitive, like I am now. But 5 years ago, I had to have a logical brain and a plan what to eat because I just had no idea. And I had a ton of food sensitivities as well. So I wanted to eat something, but I would have a reaction to it. So you can get to an intuitive place, but it's not something that everyone can follow right away.
Exactly.
Some people need a bit of a plan first, and then you can get to the place where you don't really crave junk food or sugary things anymore. Or if you do, you can see that as, oh, maybe I didn't eat enough protein at breakfast this morning, or maybe I'm extra stressed. And yes, it's fine to have the piece of cake that day, but let's also look at the deeper emotion associated or the actual cause of the problem. And let's maybe time the piece of cake a bit more smart, like wisely. Let's have it after dinner instead of the middle of the day when we're just sat at our desk and not using that sugar efficiently. So I am way more balanced 80-20 now with my lifestyle, but it's because I was a bit more strict in the early stages. and I healed my body, and it really sped up the process, being a little bit more diligent with taking supplements and doing lab tests and following a plan, so that now I can be more free with everything.
Yeah,
I
I'm totally
I just wanted
amazing.
to check as well, if someone doesn't have like Aura rings and
Mhm.
wearables and everything, can they just use the app to track the food and the skin and the symptoms?
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. And the other thing is the app is totally free. I mean, this is part of our mission. So you can track forever. The goal is we just launched some menopause features that it should take you from, menses to menopause, you're for the full life cycle. But yeah, it's designed that if you have absolutely no technology, no other app, you can use it for free. You can connect it to the steps on your phone as a proxy. So if you take your phone with you, you can use that to count steps if that's important to you. You can track your cycle, your mood, your food journals, acne, whatever it is, you can track it all in the Flöka app. And you can find that it's on the App Store or on our website. And yeah, and the goal is, it'll always be there for you because these wellness journeys are lifelong. And I love what you said on our last, I keep mentioning it, but your last podcast about how,
I'll link to that as well in the show notes in case everyone's like, let's listen to this episode. There's
yeah,
a lot of juicy content in there, isn't there?
oh, it's so good. You're so educational, but really talking about getting rid of things so it doesn't take as much work to take care of yourself is absolutely the goal. But not but and wellness is a lifelong journey. And if we, like you mentioned, if we stop doing the things that we know are good for us, it might catch up to us. And I think the goal isn't to be perfect all the time, 100%. You're going to want to have that cheesecake that you mentioned, and that's wonderful. Like if your gut is healed and you're okay to process that, that's amazing. um you're gonna always want to be able to come back to doing the things that work for you. And yeah, that's the goal with the app, so you can use it absolutely with no other tech too.
And is it more of a recent function? So this is what I've collaborated with, the courses and the content. Is that a new
Yes,
feature?
yeah. So if you are accessing a Flöka course where yours is hosted, you'll be able to access all of the tracking and everything as well too. In the same place that you're watching the content, you
Mhm.
can go implement it in the tracking. So if you're recommending, I'm so excited for the section that's all about like feminine energy and sacral healing. If you say you talk through a meditation, you can go right there and like record your meditation as occurred. Yeah, or whatever else you want to go do, track like a great meal that you've had, how you're feeling. I think that's really important. And just a side note to step out of the app as well. And I've been listening to things about the idea of like designing your, maybe kale is a bad example because your superfoods, it sounds like, are similar to my superfoods, which is not necessarily kale. But the ideal of the kale phone, of like setting your phone up in a way, since it's such a big part of our life, where the apps that are on it make you feel good, I think is just something that I've been doing recently. And so that's why it's important to kind of track your mood to know, okay, what things are making me feel good, and let's do more of this and less of things that are, maybe not making me feel good. Or it's also a dosage problem. If you've seen the charts of like Instagram, for 10 minutes, you're going to feel great. For 40 minutes, you're going to not feel great. So, another tangent, but it's just on the
And I've got
topic.
I set up the on iPhone, like the limits, how long I should be on.
Yes,
And I
yes,
am bad. I
same.
just like click off them. I'm just like, ignore. So I need to definitely practice what I preach with that. I'm doing better. I'm opting for reading a book in the evening instead of going on TikTok, because you get lost in a whole world for like 3 hours on that. It's quite dangerous, especially as like a young mind. Just be very mindful like who you're following, what you're listening to, what you're reading, because it all affects your subconscious mind. So yeah, I'm just mindful of time. Do you have a few minutes to do
Oh
a
yeah,
quick,
I'm fine. Don't worry.
what
Yeah,
are they
I'm
called?
good.
Quick fire questions? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but just so quickly on that, the ignore, I'm gonna do a request to Apple where it says ignore, like ignore requests. They should have a little meditation, breathing
Oh
thing.
yeah,
That would
yeah,
be a
yeah. That'd
great
be so
like
good.
product
Good
experience,
option.
right?
Yeah, I would pay attention to that.
Mhm.
So last few questions now for you. Do you have any other favorite tech devices or apps, obviously other than Flöka, that you want to share?
Yes, I love my Aura Ring. I love it for sleep, because I think seeing the heart rate of sleep compared to what's like healthy, what gives you different kinds of visual insights comparing the two charts, is really helpful. So I think that's incentivized me to sleep more, and sleep is just such an important thing for your cognitive health. I also have an Apple Watch that I do like to track my workouts just because I like to see that I've done them. I don't know why it is, but I just like to see that I've done them, and I like the rings, and I like how that works. Those are two wearables though. Like I mentioned, I like Temp Drop. I also like the Calm app for
Mhm.
meditations. I think meditations are super helpful. Obviously, I track a lot in Flowka. So I'm trying to think what other apps I use.
I'm an Aura fan
Um,
as well. I got my
at
Aura
one
ring
point,
going,
I
yeah.
had like pages of apps, and
Yeah.
now I have to go back and look. I was just reorganizing like the health apps, because yeah, there's a lot of them, but I think those would be the big ones.
And you can say it's partly research. So if you're downloading all of these things, you're like, I'm doing it for work.
Yeah, all the time we're like, does this connect to whatever it is? And then we figure it out. Oh, another one that we're partnering with, it's not launched yet, but is Read Your Body is a great femtech app. It's also
Mm.
in the UK.
Hmm.
And it's a nonprofit, so that's a good one. But yeah, obviously I had so many different apps. I was looking back in my old apps folder for health apps, and there was like an app specifically for just tracking bicycle trips. I was like, that's how many apps we
Yeah,
had
yeah.
back in
This
the
is
day.
taking up
So
too much iPhone storage.
yeah, it's helpful to be on one place, but if it works well together, like
Hmm.
that's an amazing thing if these things collaborate together. And I'm always trying to get more data into Floka to get more insights
And there's going to be new ones coming out all the time, so we have to
all the
keep
time.
up to date with the latest. Is there a book that you want to recommend? It could be on the subject of health or a fiction one.
I did mention Atomic Habits. I
Oh
think
yeah,
at
yeah,
this point
yeah. Really
everyone has
good.
heard of it. So I will mention a different one. It's not related to health, but it's related to life. And the book is called Range by David Epstein, I believe. And it really talks about um, I don't know, the idea of using all of your brain. When I was a kid, I loved going from art class to calculus. I loved using like all aspects of my brain. And I think we're really taught in this world that to be good at anything, you have to specialize early and often and only focus on one thing. And in many ways, it's very complementary to the integrative or holistic care space. It's like if we're so focused on one organ and we don't see the forest for the trees, um, a lot of innovation tends to come from people who have domain expertise in multiple different areas where they apply those perspectives onto another. I'm very interested in like interdisciplinary thinking. But I think it's a great book for everyone to read, or if you have kids to read, because it really changed the way that I was programmed to think about not just your career, but how you think and how to spend time, and to not feel guilty for the time that you spend, that like maybe you're in a logical job and you're spending time in something very creative, or you have a very creative career and you're spending time other ways. I think maybe for someone like yourself in your career, it's a very creative and it's very intuitive, but I think it's just a fantastic book. So
That
I
sounds
love
really
that
good.
one.
Yeah, I think is it that we only use like 5% of our brain or
I
something?
don't
Like
know. I don't
crazy. It's crazy stat
Yeah,
like that.
I don't know if that's like fully true,
Mm.
but my background, I studied psychology as my degree, but I think they might cover that in this book as well. Like
Or
I'm
is
sure
it, I
there's just
think
like
it's
a
definitely, is it that we use our subconscious mind for like 95% of our daily thoughts? It's just on repeat, like the same
something
number of thoughts.
something like
Yeah.
that. That's so true. And getting rid of those ants,
Mm.
there's that doctor who does the spec scans. Oh, I'm forgetting
Oh,
his name. Dr.
Dr.
Amen.
Amen? Yeah.
Yes, and he talks about getting rid of the ants, like the automatic negative thoughts. It's so powerful, and I'm so curious to hear about like all of your findings, the research about like positive thinking and manifestation. This is what I was most interested about when I was doing my degree, was we were learning so much about like the DSM-5 and like so many pathologies. And I was like, okay, we need to study what goes on in the world when the person is healthy and happy and fulfilled. And that's basically the study of positive
Mhm.
psychology, is like um how do we make things go right, as opposed to like reporting the
Yeah,
news
like what do we do about it?
when, yeah, because
How do we fix the problem?
yeah, there's so many pathologies and these binders that, we're giving names to, whether it's like multiple personality disorder, blah, 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 blah. But I think it's very, very interesting to me personally of like what happens when things go really right for people, like what's going on in their
Yeah,
brain.
let's
So
study those people.
yeah, exactly. Let's
Yeah.
study those people. I'm so curious and I'm excited to follow you and your journey of like learning about this topic too. And it's, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Like Flöka at the end of the day was came from the mental, like there is a double entendre there, of course, but it came from the mental state of flow, which is that flow state that we all want to experience. It's I learned about in my study of positive psychology. And that's basically only that can only happen when you get your whole body, functioning well. So it takes a whole village or a whole bunch of effort to optimize your whole body, especially if you're suffering from like issues with many different aspects. And then you get a chance to have a brain that can operate in flow. And that's really where I want to spend my time.
And that is the normal state. That's the what we should all be aiming for, is to have a clear mind and focus. And yes, we're going to be better at some things than others, but
Mhm.
our brains are so powerful and we can change them. They are plastic. We can rewire the
Absolutely.
brain, we can create neural pathways. They used to think that once a nerve had been damaged, that it was just kind of stuck that way, but we can regenerate nerves. And I think the whole subject is just fascinating. Even something like gratitude is being studied more. Being grateful for, like, a gratitude list at the end of the day has like changed my life.
Absolutely.
So good.
That is actually, I forgot about it even, but the app you were mentioning, that is, I think my other favorite app is the 5 Minute Journal app. I think
Oh, it's
it's
an app for that.
they
I
have an
just use
app.
the
It's
old
a
school, like,
wonderful app.
actual
I have the
journal.
book. I also have the app, and I think the app is just nice because it reminds you. Sometimes we need those reminders. But yes, gratitude, neuroplasticity, it's all possible. And so I think in a world of distraction, we just have to be, very discerning about cutting out the things that are not so good for us. Um, 80/20 rule, of course, but
Hmm. Or some things
trying
give us
to,
like very short term, like dopamine hit, but
yes,
we know that they're not good for us long term, like social media.
totally. But and thank goodness there are people out there like yourself creating content that is good and educational to consume, right? Because um you can use it in a good way. It's just a tool. Like technology, it's just a tool. It's like a pen. You can use
Yeah.
it to write beautiful poetry. You can use it to write terrible things. It's the same thing with your phone. You can use it to enhance your life, improve your life, change your life and your brain, or you can use it to kind of let other people addict you to products that might not be so good for you. So yeah, it's really you have the agency. Um, you're the one who's empowered to make all of the decisions. And I think it's just an exciting time to be alive. Like I know I was, so excited in 2007 with like Windows Vista, and I'm like just as excited now with everything that's going on with AI. And I think it's just a really cool time to be alive if you seize the
Mhm.
opportunity.
I admit I'm a little bit terrified of AI, but I hope it's used. I hope it's used for good.
Yeah, and I know there definitely are risks. These things don't come without risks. Yeah.
Amazing. I totally agree with all of that. So second to last question is, what's your go-to breakfast?
Go to breakfast. Okay, so I was doing a high protein breakfast with like I love like egg whites, like all the vegetables and real eggs too.
Mhm.
I think I was just on vacation, so trying to think what
Yeah,
I'm
like
doing.
waffles and ice cream and
No, I know it was pretty good. Um, Sometimes the body does want to do a little bit of like fasting, so I try to do that like without caffeine. I definitely not having coffee without food or having decaf. Sometimes like greens, celery juice sometimes ends up being like part of my breakfast or the beginning. I have like courses of breakfast.
Yeah.
We'll start with like
I've
the
definitely
lemon
been there. It's
water.
a whole routine, isn't it?
We're having like hydration the whole morning. Yeah, I think just really getting hydrated is probably the most important thing. And then I tend to have like a bigger meal and lunch or
Hmm.
dinner. I
Hmm.
prefer lunch, but I prefer to eat with people, and so that's why it tends
If
to
you're
be.
like stuck in your workflow, you're like, oh, I have to eat.
Yeah,
I know it's good for me, but.
yeah, yeah. I know.
And then very last question is where can people find you? I don't know if you have your own like social media or if it's just all under Flöka. And yeah, where we can find the app. Is it on all of the different places we'd expect?
Yes, it's in yeah, so you can find it on the Apple Store. You can go to our website, flowka.co. For me personally, I don't think I currently have a public Instagram. I have Twitter, which is
Hmm.
just Vanessa GHIS.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can find us at Flowka Life on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, and we'd love to hear your feedback. We're constantly evolving the whole product experience based on the feedback of the community. And are just wanting to build the most valuable, experience that we can. And if you have any requests, send those over.
Yeah, any other apps or devices that you don't see on there? Like you're adding new things all the time, aren't you?
Yes, it's very dense sprints. Yeah, we're launching features. We should announce all the ones. They kind of get announced in the app store notes, but
Hmm.
yeah, there's like constantly more and more happening as things evolve. But
So exciting. Well, I
yeah,
think
me
you're
too.
doing amazing work out there. And yeah, I'm so excited to have the course on there now and just offer it to more people. And I'm
Yeah,
sure there's going to be a lot of people listening. They want to sign up right away. So yeah, you can download the app. All the links will be in the episode show notes. And I just want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story, being vulnerable, and also, yeah, sharing a little bit about the business side of things and this amazing app that you're just constantly evolving and growing. I think it's going to go on to do amazing things, even more so.
thank you so much, and thank you for all of the education information you're sharing. Like, I cannot wait to enroll myself in your course, and I think it's just amazing. I think it's a wonderful education on mold, and I can't wait to share more about it. So thank you so much for having me. It's been a wonderful morning together.
I know.
Praying for yourself,
I
and
know. We've had a full morning for yourself together, and it's the end of my day. So yeah, it's been so good. And thank you for coming on the show, Vanessa. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love for you to leave me a rating and review on your podcast app, as this helps to support the show and it allows it to reach more people with this valuable information. Come and say hi over on Instagram. I'm at Viva Natural Health. And if you haven't already, check out my website, vivanaturalhealth.co.uk, for tons more free resources and to discover how I could support you further. I currently offer one-on-one consultation packages if you want my top level support, then more affordable group programs and self-paced online courses. So there really is something for everyone. If you're ready to change and get some answers but aren't sure which option would be best, take that first step today and apply for a free enrollment call on my website, and we'll discuss the best steps for you to take in order to achieve hormonal harmony. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you back here next week for another episode.